Hi, here again. Introduction to the hood. Guess we're going to call this part A, B, and C. We're going to go over the three boxes. This is going to be a quick video as far as referencing to that because I'm not going to bore you with the details of every integral part of this model. I think it has over 1,000 pieces. I will go over what's in each box, but it will be a quick overview. And I will go over what I've worked on since I saw you last about a week ago. The first thing I have to tackle with this is the remote control aspect of it, which is going to take foremost treatment on this until it's done and I have it all ironed out, and then I'll work on the model aspect of this. So the first thing I had to tackle is the rudder, and this is the rudder that I fished out of the box. And what I was able to do is cut two pieces. I basically put this up against it, traced it, and made two pieces out of brass. I have this thick brass here. And I put a collar right where that should be, right here. And I soldered that all in, sanded it, so that way there's something to basically adhere to once the rudder is in, but I will get to that after this. So we're going to go over these boxes. This first box, a bit longer, okay, and then the other two boxes. There's three of them in here. And what's in here is a lot of the deck pieces and the superstructure. I'm going to cut these open now. They haven't been cut open yet. I have looked at them, but this is the first time they'll be open. First thing is, this is a big model, and the thing is it has a lot of detail. I don't know if it's picking it up on camera, but there is a great amount of detail. I don't know what parts are what yet. I haven't looked that far into it. What I do know is it lends itself to having lighting, which I may pursue. So I believe this is, I'm not even sure. No, this is part of the superstructure, obviously up past the main deck. I believe this is the main part of the next deck above the main deck. I don't know what it's called. I'm not Navy, I'm Army. I just like to do Navy models. Super detailed because it's super large. It even has these little squares here are the stairs that go down into the next deck. It's that big and that detailed to where they actually have that. And you might not be able to see it, but there's basically the detail of the wood deck compared to the metal deck. Again, I don't know what every part is, but if you look in here, I don't know if it picks it up, but it even has like the support girders or ribbing to hold up this structure on the inside. And there's even some photo etch for some of the smaller pieces, because it would be smaller, thinner metal, to hold up some of the other parts of the superstructure, which is really interesting. The other thing I noticed with this is that parts like this, where you're going to be able to actually see it through, and I don't know if they have any other parts in here that, or if there's parts that go below it, but I'm going to have to, if they don't have it already as part of this model, I'm going to have to make the interior so you're not just looking into nothingness, which I enjoy challenges like that. And also the windows, those are big enough to see into. Not as it's on the water doing remote control stuff, but when it's sitting, and somebody looks at that, they're going to see into it. So if it's possible, I will do parts of the interior to just make it, where it doesn't look bad just sitting there. I want it to look good even when it's sitting on my friend's shelf. The deck comes into in several pieces. The one good thing is that I noticed is that the hull comes with support beams. support beams go across the top so that you can place these pieces on. But because it's in separate pieces, you know, I'm gonna have to figure out exactly how that's gonna work out, because it does have to support. So I might have to put some styrene in there also as support. And I might actually have to put some screws in through the top of this so that it could be secured, but removable, obviously, for battery and repairs and the like. So I believe this is the front and back, and because the superstructure takes so much of the middle, there's no reason to have a middle. So probably the superstructure has to be the part that comes up to replace anything. But we'll see. If I can find another way, I might find another way. But these are the two halves. Again, it has a very detailed parts of this. Like all the reels and everything that are molded onto smaller models where you really can't make out the details unless you get photo etch, and even then you have to have good eyesight to even see it. This has full parts, so I will probably be actually putting wire onto those reels and actual rope onto those reels. So they will not only be reels, but they'll be having reels that actually have rope and wire. So it's another thing that will have this model taking some time, is because I like to put that kind of realism into it. It's just fun to do, and it looks good. Some other pieces, again, I'm not too sure where they go yet, but I will know shortly. And this is, let's see, this is box C actually, but it's the largest box. I believe this is part of the superstructure here that goes up higher. It's like a crow's nest, whatever you call it, and the bridge. What's nice is that it comes as a full piece. You don't have to put these things together. But it's also a little bit of a hindrance if, see the windows there? I don't know if it's picking it up, but unless you want to open those windows to see in, so you can, you know, add a little more detail. That's the only difference is, you know, if I have to drill and cut those out, it's going to be a little bit of a pain. These are two more pieces. Yeah, again, nice detail on this model. And the other thing that I will find out and give my judgment on with models is the quality of detail and the quality of them fitting together. You can have nice detail, but if they don't fit together, it's still a bad model. I don't think there'll be a problem with Trumpeter. They're really known, especially for their ships. I've never done any aircraft with them. I've done it with other models. When I was younger, I always found Revell to be the worst in aircraft models, because their parts always came warped. I don't know if they've changed. Hopefully they have. I know they combine with Monogram, which I used to love Monogram for aircraft when I was younger. I haven't done any recently in my adult life, so I really don't know. Other small various parts I'm not even going to show you because I don't even know what they are. And, more part of the decking. There's maybe some of you Navy guys or people more in tune with what the hood has or doesn't have would know some of these parts. So that's box C. And if you have any questions or you want me to show a specific detail on this model, so you're thinking about getting this model and you want to know something more specific, then put it in the comments and I'll see if I can get to it and show you. They have detail kits for these where they'll even do the whole inner structure of the turrets, which is incredibly maddening to me because you won't even see it, but when you can pull it out and look at it, I don't know. That's box C. Let's do box B. I'll order backwards, I guess. Where did my handy dandy knife go? I think I locked it in there. Oh no, the knife. It's been sealed away. Just give me a moment to locate. Yeah. I tried to find a home in box C. Okay. Now this is box B. Okay. Now these are the support struts I was telling you about that go inside the model. I don't know if they're to scale or if they're just, you know, just for support because they're the model needs it. And then there's a plaque, I guess, that you can paint, and but those go across the beam length. This box has a lot of very small parts, so I got to be careful bringing these out because I don't want any falling off. But all the little tiny pieces that would be on a ship that in normal models, some of them they wouldn't even make you because they're just too small to even see on a, say, a 400 or 700. 700 scale is one of the more popular scales because you can make, say, a battleship and still have room wherever you're putting it on a shelf or a desk. I believe this is, yes, this is a copy of the one you just looked at. I'm guessing it's, you know, the parts that there's various amount of multiples of. So, yep, and there's a third one. So it's these three are the same. And let's open the next package within box B. Okay. Very thin parts right there. You gotta be real careful taking stuff like that off. It might be to a crane, something thin. It looks like one of the smaller gun batteries on this. It's probably the base plate for them, possibly there for another type of gun or instrument. And this is a copy. Also notice the lifeboats. I like the way they organized the like parts in the packages. So now I know that there's so many packages with the same parts and whatnot. And these two are the same, so I'm going to put one down and show you the other. Again, it has one of the guns, so we got looks like 4 of them, or 5, I guess. Yeah, so I don't actually know how many the ship actually has, but it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, so 8 of these shields, to whatever size gun that is. And more lifeboats, and then, yep, and you can see some of the other guns. Quite nice detail on that, actually. And sometimes they have you replace these with brass barrels, which I think the owner of this is going to do with this, which is really nice. It just, you can tell it's metal, even if it's painted. Just gives a very nice detail to it. The lifeboats on this are almost as big as some of my 700 models, which is insane. That's how big this model is. Yeah. These are usually when I see the signal lights and lamps, they come in a tiny little piece and they almost look, you know, something like that. It's just like a one-piece thing. This is the bracket that holds it, which means it has another piece just for the signal itself. I believe some of these parts are internal. I'm not sure, but and I believe this is a copy to a degree. there's some differences on this. There might be. I think this is here. It looks like a torpedo. I believe that's actually like a towing device for submarines, to find submarines, but I'm not completely sure. Alright. Coming to the last package in box B. Trying to get through this fast so you don't have like a super long video to have to watch. Because, probably part of the superstructure, I'm guessing. Another large part. These are all the brackets to hold the boats in place on the deck. So that is box B. It's warm here in Georgia. I have the fan on, so if you hear something in the background besides bugs, that's what it is. Well, box A has the good stuff. It has the turrets, same as the last. And this one's already unpackaged because I had to get that rudder. And these are the holds right there for the shaft. I'm probably going to make my own out of brass to make it a little bit stronger and poke it through the hull and epoxy it, all that kind of good stuff. All the various parts. Okay, just going to rip this one open. They don't have small pieces, so I'm not too worried about it. For the size of those turrets, it's like silver dollar size, bigger. Now we are replacing the barrels with metal barrels. This thing really lends itself to be RC'd. So if anybody out there is thinking about that, yep, that's a good idea. You can do it. These are double turreted. It's weird the way they did treaties limiting guns. So, you know, you look at the hourglass and you see these 3 barrels, right? But they only had 3 turrets. This has 4 turrets. So in essence, they all have the same amount of guns. I think only the Yamato is the one that has like a lot of guns, but all the other ones, no matter how big they are, because of treaty, they vary. Because you know, you can have ones that have more guns, but they're smaller in size, and then you have other ones that they have really giant guns, but they have less of them because they all had to, like, in one way or another, kind of like stick to the treaty. So you know, when people try to compare battleships, it's really an unfair thing because there's really sometimes no way to compare them. Also because of the theater of war they fought in, and sometimes, you know, everybody, you know, screams about the Yamato, about how good it was, but it did sink a single ship. And it's unfair because it really never got close enough to do so. I mean, there was a couple times, but basically the commander was afraid and ran away. But one thing about the Yamamoto is that its anti-aircraft guns were so inefficient, and they were just garbage. That was the problem with the whole Japanese fleet. Their range was horrible, and their targeting acquisition was far behind. So they had a low rate of fire, very low range, or not good enough range, and their rate of fire suffered horribly. So the only good thing is that Yamato had a lot of them, so that helped it somewhat, and it was a big, heavy, you know, very armored ship. But you know, when you compare it to say an Iroquois, which is a later built ship, its fire control was very good, and its anti-aircraft was superb compared to that of the Yamato. So it's almost an equal comparison, because if you put aircraft into the equation, you know, and the same thing with like the Bismarck. The Bismarck was an older ship, but if you put it, you know, people try to put it up against the Yamato. It's really unfair because it's an older ship, but also, you know, you can't you can't argue with the Bismarck's fire control. It took out the hood in 5 salvos, or it and its sister ship, and it took a lot to take it down. So they're all equal in my eyes. A lot of the big ships of the late era of World War II, or the big mighty ships, to me they're all equal in their own way. And given their perfect circumstances, either one of them can win. But enough of that. These are the smokestacks. There's also photo etch for this, because there's like a screen on top, so they give you plenty of photo etch to mimic that. And it's actually in this, so I'll show you that. If anybody's never done photo etch before, the only thing I can tell you is don't start off with a model where like all it is photo etch. Do something that has some photo etch, and then move on to stuff that has a lot. Photo etch is this brass material which you fold into shape, and basically because the material is thinner, it gives more realism. So instead of like having a molded ladder to the side of the plastic, you have a separated ladder. Say the ladder has struts that go in, so now you can bend the tips in and have the ladder actually separated. You can actually see what the ladder is supposed to look like. Or like this, which is all the railings, which is almost impossible to do with plastic unless it's even a bigger scale, in which case it still never looks right. Photo etch is always the better way to go, and there is a lot of photo etch in this. Photo etch can be really frustrating, but when you get it on, it really looks good. I mean, there's no, it goes from being a model to a piece of art. It really does. So if you decide to get into photo etch on your models, do slow at a slow pace. Do one that get a model that already has some photo etch, but it's not tons of it. Or get one thing that you're like, what, my 1/700 scale ship needs to have railings because it's going to make it look real. And then maybe do rigging, and then that's it. Because that'll be a nice right there. Okay, I'm going to show you the insides of this RC, or what I've got together so far. First, I'm going to show you the rudder I made. It's brass, and basically, what I said is I made 2 pieces. I soldered them together, and basically I formed it. I don't know if it's going to pick it up or not, but it's got a shape to it. Still needs some cleaning up. So there's a collar in there that I made with that brass tube, and within that brass tube there's a solid piece of brass that goes down in, and there's a nylon piece in there, and the nylon piece is so tight that I had to basically use a lot of pressure to push the rod into there. So it can be pulled out, but it's like pulling a nail out, like a really tough nail. And then there's a brass collar on the inside that I drilled a little bit of a hole, not all the way through, but enough to be able to seat the brass collar on the inside of the boat up to a piece of metal that's a cross beam, and soldered those together so it's a nice strong connection, and then used epoxy and glue to fasten it to the boat sides. And that collar then is, or that the rod that goes down into the collar shaft, the shaft itself is then, I use nylon again to pressure in the lever for the RC, and then glued it for extra measure. And I can't use super glue or other type of stuff. I kind of have to use this stuff because super glue won't stick to nylon, because basically that's the kind of bottles they're held in. And the idea is the RC pulls it this way, it goes that way, it goes back to neutral, it pushes it the other way, and it'll turn the other way. And then For the switch, as you see, I got two aluminum brackets. I had some left over from another project, and I glued them into place, and then I put screw holes, and I made a little notch. I wanted it to be closer because I wanted it to not move at all. I don't want this thing to torque and then it turn, so that's why it's a little bit notched there, so there's no chance of it turning. And I put the wheel forward, but I put it off to the side because I want it to be, as when you do RC, you want these to be as close to each other lined up as possible to get the right turning radius. Because if you have them far apart, your turning radius one way might be too much or too little, and the other way the same thing. So you want them, you don't want them, you want them to be like this so they move like that, because say it's like this, then you might get only this and then this. So you want to make sure that they lined up right. And that's enough for this video, and I will be back with another video probably showing the rest of the RC part of it. I probably on my own will get into doing some of the other parts of the ship. I think I'm probably going to get into doing some of the interior stuff that I need to get into, because if you can see through it, basically preparing for the actual model part of it. But I really won't get into the model part of it until I make sure the RC stuff is right, because it's going to take up a lot of this interior. I want to make sure I have room for what I got to do. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, just in the comments below. I'm very new to this YouTube stuff, so it'd be nice to have an editor, because I don't know anything about that. But until next time,